Test 1.
On mute,
You see something?
and I'm gonna, well, I don't know, I'll get out
I
of
did
the
get an
camera.
email from Sunny said I'm on there. And we're gonna have to
I
turn
got
this
to
way
I'll be right back.
and turn this on. Should be able to see everybody up here. Just
Hello,
they won't be able to see you.
I don't care.
Well,
Sonny, can you hear me? Test, test, test. Hey, Sonny.
She does all the entertainment. And that's.
3290100.
Found out she was leaving, her friends,
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
and I just Googled it, find it, to be honest, once it got
I've been trying
posted.
3 months to get this. Always happens. She's going in
Yeah,
there.
well, take it, baby. It's gonna be a couple minutes.
Yeah, government finances. the
How long before we're gonna start? We are waiting on some people, 6 minutes.
I got a phone call. He got a phone
Yeah, hey,
call.
this is John at the airport. Can Sonny hear us
How
on
you
the Zoom
doing?
meeting?
Getting all into it?
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mute it for a minute.
I was there tonight. You got, well,
Thanks.
You sent me a card in the mail too.
I did.
Thank you. I have it in my office.
John, you.
Think so.
Yes, Mayor, we can hear you.
Is he a
Can you hear me?
character? Because.
No.
I'm on Sonny's computer.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. There's a lot of noise going on in here, sir. What'd you say?
I'm on Sonny's computer. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you now. I'm gonna mute it for just a minute. Before we get going here.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
John, I can't hear you. If you're talking to me, you're muted.
Perfectly happy. PowerPoint.
Okay, I can hear you now.
How many of those things don't work?
I know. I'll let him have those 3 things.
Okay.
This new Snapchat, who could use?
Snapchat. I don't even have Snapchat.
That's me, Dana.
Boy,
Good
Can you hear us,
afternoon.
Dana?
Hello.
Can you hear us, Dana?
8.
Yes, sir. I
Hello.
can see you really up close too.
But you can't hear?
Yes, sir, I
You
can.
can hear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Dana.
Hi, Melissa.
Can't hear.
Yeah, we're gonna have to speak up, everybody, because we're operating on one computer here.
What kind of computer is that? It's a nice little one.
You good?
I like the size of
It's
it.
a Dell. Yeah, I made a good trade with Jonathan Griffith on that. I can't even mind what. Remember when we traded computers?
No, I don't.
What do you have? What's your, you got the handy dandy, it was the best at one time. It was
The surface.
top line service. Yeah, yeah, that was really, that's for me.
Yeah.
I said, let Jonathan have it. I'll take a little more basic situation. Remember that? That was a good trade.
Jonathan, I got, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No,
I got everything put together for that now in the new video. So give it to, who did you tell me to give it to?
Send it to Sonny and I. or bring
Well, I
it
gotta
to-
bring it down there. It's too big to send it.
So you're now a videographer or producer?
Actually, I'm not. I got the school board to do it and they did a great job. Actually put a little music to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and complete that application tomorrow. Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, that would be great.
Got a lot of interest. Got it right. Clay Electric wants me to put in for a grant for it. if we get a supplemental grant.
All right. You know, Don? is
I
gonna
think
be able to come?
he's,
Yeah.
They want to come out.
People are coming out.
There you go, Wayne. Remember that?
I'm putting today from,
Oh, Mr. Eddie?
Nice to meet you.
Hey.
Oh, good night.
Counselor?
If y'all started the meeting, I can't hear because it's muted again. Terrell, can you hear him?
No, I can't hear him either.
It
I don't
looks
think-
like
I
they're
don't-
mu-
I don't think they've started yet.
he's usually really punctual on noon.
Yeah. They're muted.
Mr. Yule, this is Sunny. I've hit the ask to unmute button. It looks like you're unmuted now. Can you say something?
Test, test, test. Can you hear us?
We hear you now.
Thank
Hello. Okay, we need one more minute. We got one more member that'll be here in just a minute before we'll have a quorum. Yep, I think I hear him coming.
Yeah.
Apologize. That's all right, Mr. Brown. Welcome.
Come on in.
I've waited for a month to get a hold of the guy, and you might know, I sit down and my phone rings, it's him. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to everybody. This is the advisory board meeting for the month of April. And we're very happy to have our advisory board members here, which is Melissa, John Browning, Wayne McLean, and me. And we have Dana online, and I think that's it so far. We might have a few stragglers come in. But we've called the meeting to order. We're very happy to have our mayor with us today by way of Zoom. Mr. Mayor, thank you for being here and being our new liaison. Very much appreciate you and your hard work. And I think what we'll do is just go around the room for a minute and let everybody introduce themselves for the sake of our new guests. This is our meeting, and the city we serve is represented by council and also with the mayor. And I assume maybe Mr. Holmes is zooming in, maybe not. So we'll start with Melissa. Maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us what you do, and we'll just go right around the room to everybody in the room. And that way everybody knows everybody, so Mr. Mayor is well in the group.
So my name's Melissa Miller. I'm Senior Vice President and General Counsel at St. John's River State College.
And thank you for your service, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Valeria Bland Thomas, I'm the city attorney for the city of Palaca.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas, and thank you for being here.
I'm John Browning with the Goodman Company and various interests in Palaca.
I'm Wayne McLean, Beck Automotive, Mayor Hill's favorite senior citizen.
Not anymore. You just told me I just saw another email where you had a favorite attorney now, so you're back to number 2.
John, you airport manager, and before we keep going here, how is the voice quality, Sonny?
It's okay, just a heads-
Anybody?
We do have a sign that says Airport Advisory Board's network bandwidth is low. It started happening when you started moving the camera.
Okay, I'll stop. But just let everybody know, please speak up because we have low bandwidth because of the fiber optic cable was cut. We're operating on a hotspot right now.
Thank you, John.
Lauren Shank, Finance Director for City of Palaca. I am new to the city from Flagler County. And I am from Palaca originally, so for me, it was returning home whenever I started.
I'm glad you're here.
Welcome back.
Rick Cunningham, just attendant here at the airport.
Just attendant. We're glad to have you.
Well, we're glad to have you just
Yes,
attend.
we
And
just
there
did
was
what we
nice.
do.
Real good.
Good to see you. You can pick your chair anywhere.
I
you
don't
want.
care, I'll sit wherever,
No,
nobody,
you can sit by the pretty lady.
I don't want to sit too close to John Brown and yeah.
Wow.
Matt
Singletary, Pastor Associates, we're engineering consultant for the airport in the city.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for all that you do for us.
Sure, no problem.
Jonathan Griffith, General Services Director, City of Palaca.
Mr. Holmes.
Don Holmes, and I'm not sure exactly what I am, but.
All right. And sir, would you like to introduce yourself?
Eddie Cutright, Community Affairs Director for Palaca.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Well, welcome to everybody, and it's a nice group, and we're here to celebrate and serve our city and our airport. And we thank you for everybody's interest. Before I make a comment, we need to approve the minutes of the Airport Advisory Board meeting on February 3, 21. So do I have comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. I want to just start with a little quote. If I
Excuse me,
can,
Mr. Chairman.
please. Kind of,
Hang on, I plugged this in and it took the Zoom away. I've got a briefing I need to give here.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, this is Sunny Krantz. May I have who made the motion and second for the record?
yeah, motion, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Wayne McLean made the motion, second by John Browning.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I have a quote from Woodrow Wilson that surely represents what the advisory board does here, as well as each of you that are in this room. You are not here merely to make a living. You are here to enable the world to live more amply, with greater vision, with a finer spirit of hope and achievement. You are here to enrich the world, and you impoverish yourself if you forget the errand. And I thought that was a very appropriate little quote that kind of defines our giving spirit and our serving spirit that we enjoy sharing here. And thank you to each one of you for what you do. It's very important for us to remember that this airport has been a beautiful picture of success. Although we don't make a lot of money for the city, we've sure grown from being a little nothing to a beautiful, beautiful facility. Beautiful people. John, you've done a beautiful job.
You folks, just on your shoulders.
We sure
He's
appreciate.
beautiful too, isn't he?
Well, he kind of is. I mean, sometimes you have to look with one eye, but.
No, he's not.
Pick on me, you get it back.
Please.
But we're very grateful for what we have to come. And John and I were talking a little earlier. I was hoping to join him at a city workshop tomorrow night, and I double booked, and had to repent, apologize to the mayor for not being able to. But we have a $22,400,000 improvement since '04 on this property. And 98% of the money has all been given to us for free. So we have a 22 million, you can pass that around if you like, that the Airport Advisory Board has been part of helping direct. Matt, your company, Pastoral Associates, has just done a beautiful job in helping make us what we are today. And as we look forward, we've, as an advisory board, working with the city and the commission, we've seen, we got a lot of dreams, got a lot of plans. And, you know, we've also been looking for 20 years for big money visitors, big money tenants, growth at our airport beyond what we have. And we've been very honored to have a guy by the name of Mr. Morris frequent awfully often here lately. I ride by every weekend and I call John and say, John, I see that jet out there again. And I believe it's like 8 out of the last 10 weekends, we've been privileged to have a celebrity here. And it's very, very nice. And he's getting to be more and more frequent of a visitor. So, you know, when we think about the new name for the airport, we might think about something that has to do with Bass Capital of the World and Bass Pro Shops, or I don't even know, but, you know, it's really a good thing to see that. And then there's been some other jets here lately too, John.
Yeah, comment on Mr. Morris. I met him at the airplane one day and said, well, welcome back, Mr. Morris. He said, it's a very nice place to be welcome back to. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think he's got liking us.
Thank you.
A couple other people. We had the CEO of Under Armour flew in last week on a Falcon 20, which is a large business jet. And also the people who bought the big building in the old Florida Furniture Building that deal in helping humanity have been flying in, and they've got a Challenger 601, which is a huge jet. And I asked them, is it chartered? They said, no, they own it.
That's the Mayor One operation.
Mayor One.
They buy a lot
Kind
of
of
fuel.
circling around
He
that.
wasn't saying that.
Calls him like he sees them, doesn't he?
Did they buy a lot of fuel?
They do. They do. They buy,
Did they
you know,
make
600 and 700
It's very
credit
legit.
card.
Not know that sound like-
Bitcoin.
Oh, that's a good point.
Well, it's very nice to have all these guests. And then you have some others too, somebody that went up, right?
But
Some lady? that came
yes,
in?
yes, somebody came down. From Missouri, flew out from Missouri. I'm not sure if she's friends with Johnny Morris, but she flew out in a jet by herself. And she flew out, her crew brought her just to go turkey hunting.
Turkey hunt.
There you go.
John, who is the businessman at the end of the airport that flies to the Virgin Islands all the time?
His name is Jeff Nations, and he owns
He owns
the
a
old
building,
building,
a
the
lot of
old
property
CD
over
building
there.
over there, and he bought a large tract of property. He's in the process of moving his refinery and power plant pipe business up from St. Croix to here. And there's a lot of activity going on over there. And he's also rented this old terminal building. He owns five airplanes.
Here's a little write-up on them. You can pass it.
They're smaller airplanes, not jet, but he flies back and forth on a jet. He and his
To the Virgin
family.
Islands.
Yeah, he charters a jet. Maybe he'll buy one day and maybe build a hangar over there on that side.
I
of
know
the
he's building a
airport.
lot of stuff over there.
And I've told him, we've told him about the property just across the parking lot
That's
from
great,
him
man.
would be available for him if he wanted to build,
That's awesome.
a hangar and then get a clicker to be able to drive through the fence and off to the islands.
Well, John, thank you for all you do to welcome all these people, and it's really a wonderful thing to see starting.
And like Johnny said, it's a good place to welcome people to.
I like that. I do. We think the same. Yeah. And as we see this beltway finish from here to the north, I'm sure we're going to have even more that whether we want it or not, it's on its way, big time. All right, well, thank you. I think that kind of finishes up my comments. Is there any public comments at this time? All right, well, we'll just go right into the airport update. And John, we'll start with you in the business report. Maybe you should just talk about it, huh?
Well, without the slides,
Yeah, you might lose that.
yeah, that does kill the bandwidth. I can briefly speak to it. It's called the business brief for April.
Are we off of Zoom now?
Nope. Hey, Sunny.
Hi. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you allow us to share our screen? Oh, it's just.
It's not restricted.
Okay.
Yeah. That's gonna be a band.
Cut the fiber optic.
Well, he might.
On the nose.
We can see the presentation.
Yep.
Okay, I'll just page you to the next one before I mess something up. We're looking good. Just
Can't
the
do a slideshow.
slides kind of speak for themselves. Operation last year a little bit up. Sales, which next slide. We have sold for 100 low lead, and we sold more Jet A. Back up, the other one to back up.
I think so. Nope.
Yeah, technology
Oh,
break.
no. It escaped.
That's okay. Jet sales are up as well.
How's your jet sales with all these jets coming here? Are they fueling here or are they fueling other places?
They'll do both. Sometimes they'll bring enough fuel to where they don't have to buy fuel, but and they'll also buy 100 or so gallons as what they call courtesy fuel instead of a
So
700-gallon load.
What was our fuel last year and what is it this year?
Can we
it had it up
can we
there,
back
but-
up?
I didn't, record fuel. There it is.
There it is.
I think it'd be.
Well, I think we need that. Mr. Chairman. 500 gallons a piece, that's all that is. And by courtesy fuel.
Excuse me.
And I think it's something we need to talk, let them know. Pick that way up with the amount of times they're flying in and out of here. 1,000 gallons in a month is nothing.
Yeah.
Mr. Yule, this is Ms. Krantz. Can you hear me? We lost you.
Are we back? We're going to abandon the business briefing.
Thank you.
Can you hear us? Did you hear that?
Yeah, why are you abandoning? Why is the briefing being abandoned?
Oh,
No,
we're not.
he didn't mean that.
Yeah, I didn't mean we're going to abandon it. What are we doing? We're not.
Well, you're just not going to use the
Just
video
not gonna use the
display.
slide.
We're not going to use the slides.
Yeah,
Close those out.
because you can't use the slides and maintain the view. I mean, the Zoom because of our decreased bandwidth right now, based upon the fiber optic having been cut. He's operating off of a turbocharged hotspot or something of that nature. So that's the challenge we have right now with the Zoom at the airport. I think they're trying to figure out who cut it and where, and we've already authorized, I think the county and we are joining in the expense of optic cut is what I'm talking about. In the meantime, we've gotten turbocharged hotspots that are helping to keep John going, but you know, they don't they're not a full substitute for the fiber optic. So that's what we've got going right now. And then we've got the wonderful world of Zoom to deal with.
So let's just abandon 4A for a minute until John gets his slideshow printed out, and we'll go to 4B. And Matt, maybe you can speak a little bit. Thank you again for your hard work. And Kyle is normally on with us from FDOT, and I didn't see him up there.
Mr. Chairman.
Kyle, are you here?
Chairman.
Mr.
Oh, yes,
Chairman,
sir, Mayor?
if Mr. Yule will send the slide to Ms. Krantz, she can actually show it on her end and it shouldn't affect your bandwidth.
Okay. Okay, we'll tell him that when he gets back. But in the meantime, Kyle, if you will speak, I don't know exactly what format you have, but if you can just speak without a slideshow and give us a little update on the 5-year capital projects.
Okay.
And you may want to come a little closer so they can hear
You
you.
can sit in John's.
Sure. So we have listed in the handout today what the recommended capital improvement plan changes are this year, which was,
I don't have it.
That's all right.
well, I've got it printed out on agenda, but
Is this it?
that is it, correct. It's in table format. So basically what this list is just changes that we're recommending. We wanted to quickly go over with you.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
there you go.
Good, thanks. Thanks, Sonny.
So the first one listed there, runway 9 run-up apron. That is a run-up apron for the runway 9 for planes taking off. We had discussed this project and it was planned to go into the taxiway A job, which is going to go into construction later this year. The FAA was somewhat opposed to it because of it would have needed discretionary funding, FAA discretionary funding. So what we're proposing here is we've taken out of the taxiway A project, but because we've kind of agreed there is a desire and need to have it, we could get it back potentially through entitlement funding with the FAA, which the airport receives $150,000 entitlement funding every year. And we don't see this being any issue as far as taking away from any other projects that we need that funding. And it's not allocated for anything other than this potentially right now. So that's kind of that project.
What was the total cost of that project?
So a little over $300,000. I can't say exactly, it's probably $350. So we have the 300 from the FAA. That would be 90% of the total. Then the DOT, typically on a FAA project, we'd have the DOT and the city splitting the other 10%, or it could be a 8%, 2% in this case, since it's a non-revenue project.
And I don't mean to belabor the point, but it says that we're entitled to 150 per year.
Correct.
But so you'd have to have 2 years of funding from the FAA.
That's correct. So yeah, you're kind of covered. Well, it says right there, FY 22, 23. So that's the entitlement years we're talking about.
Sonny, can you move the pictures someplace where they don't obscure the screen?
Just, there you go.
There you go. That's great. Thank you. Or Lauren did it. Thank you, Lauren.
But that's correct. Yeah, it would be 2 years of FAA entitlement funding.
And then we'd still have a $50,000 match to come up with between the city and DOT.
Right. So 2% of that would typically be the city share.
2%?
2% of the total, I should say, 20% of the 50, if that's the total cost.
Yeah.
Anything else on that project you want to? And John can speak to it more. He's one of the big proponents of the run-up apron. And we have discussed the need for it with a lot of flight school training happening with a lot, peak hours, a lot of planes taking off at once, and the need for them to get off the taxiway so larger jets or other aircraft could get by and they're not clogging up traffic. So that's kind of the idea. But the next project, extend runway 927 to 7,000 feet. That's a project that's been in the JSIP capital improvement plan for a pretty long time. I'm not sure how many years, but it kind of has been deferred several times, and that's kind of what we're looking at doing here. It would be a great project for the airport if it ever was realized. So it's a good idea. We would recommend to keep it in the CIP and defer it again unless there's some reason not. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead, and then I'm gonna have a question.
I got one.
So that, anyways, that's kind
Okay.
of the idea. We don't want to take it out of the CIP, but this would allow the funding that's allocated in that fiscal year 26 to be used for something else that may be needed now, which the door, without getting into the next one, but the reallocation would be to move it to hangar, door, and roof. But go ahead.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, as you know, I've been on the minority view of this for several years that, and I think what I'm seeing now with the jets coming in and the increase that maybe I wasn't totally wrong. I just see this as more of a priority for us to extend this runway for what we see coming down the road. And we don't, if we wait to 2029, that's way too late.
You have to start, right?
Well, I would just say you could, it is so far out, even in 2026, you could adjust the CIP if something came about where there's a need and you could actually get it done and the funding would be provided because you actually can justify the need for it, then it could be slid back up. So
But
it really doesn't.
As an old pilot that doesn't fly anymore, though, I can tell you, if it was in the JSEP that I had a 7,000 foot runway, that's going to get my attention. And, you know, and I just think with what we got facing, I just don't agree with this being so far down the road. That's just my 2 cents.
So, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I'd agree with him. You know, Goodman doesn't like to fly in here. Because train can land, it's really hard on the tires.
Mhm.
I mean, it smokes the whole thing when it lands. It's just not, and if there's one thing that we ought to be doing is extending that. And if you look, number 3, you're taking money out of the extension of the runway to redo the doors. I think that's all backwards. I think we've got to do the extended runways and we need to find another way to repair the doors and to take it off the extension of the runway. I mean, you got to run up. Look, we're sitting here. How many planes have taken off? If you were at a big airport, I'm sitting here watching, there's been 3 planes. Okay. So this runway apron is not as big a deal as to go ahead and do it. I'd rather keep that money and let's use it to do the hangars if we want to. If we got the money, 150,000, and figure over 3 years, let's use it and get the hangars looking good.
Well, that can't be used for hangars, so that's
You know,
one problem.
that's the whole problem. Can't be used for him.
Nothing can be used. It seems, I won't say, it just seems like we find a way to use some of this stuff for all kind of things, but I don't think taking it away from the 7,000 foot runway should be our top major thing out here, should be to get the runway longer.
I mean,
That'll bring us to world. And if we have it up there, then we go to DOT and we go to the feds. And we say, look, our number 1 project is a 7,000 foot runway. I'm not saying they'll fund it, but when we tell them, well, yeah, we want that to be done in 2029. Are you kidding me? We're gonna have electric cars by 2023. They gotta be, no, that's way the heck out there.
All right, Melissa?
So with potential of the stimulus dollars coming down or any CARES Act funding, would it be beneficial to keep the extension prioritized and kind of ready to go in case we get an influx of dollars that we haven't anticipated in the past?
But that, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes.
But I think, Melissa, though, they look at our plan and they say, if I was sitting in Washington or wherever, I look down and say, well, you know, the city and the airport doesn't think it's a priority.
No, I
Why do
said
we think it's?
keep it prioritized.
I'm sorry?
Keep it prioritized.
Keep it the number 1.
Yeah,
That's
keep it
right.
prioritized.
DOT, what they do is he sits up there and they look at all the projects, all the airports. And they don't have enough money to do them all. So they pick and choose and we'll take it from this one this year and we'll do to that one next year. But if you don't have it right there, where that's the first thing they see, man, you might as well not send it.
So 927 is 5,000 feet now, is it?
6,000 total threshold to threshold, I guess, is less.
So you're adding 1,000 feet.
That's quite a bit.
Right. Yeah.
Which is huge for
A big
mid-sized
jet,
jets.
that's a fantastic.
And you've got room in terms of, there's not any impediment.
Yes, there is.
There is.
Yeah.
What's the impediment?
The power lines, isn't that an impediment on it?
For 7,000 feet, I'm not 100% sure.
I
if
thought
that
it
was an
was last time we
impediment, but
It's
talked
getting
about it.
close. It's getting close, but.
I think that is part of it. I do believe you're correct.
Oh,
though.
we go ahead and plan for it. It's not gonna get any easier.
Well, I'm just trying to find out.
You're right.
You're showing 600,000, I guess you're showing 600,000 to extend the runway 1,000 feet. Is that accurate?
No, I mean, it'd be more than that for sure.
What are we
What's your
talking?
match?
That's just the money that the FDOT has allocated for this project in that year. The
What
total
is the
project
approximate-
cost, I really have no idea. It'd be very expensive. I mean, that's kind of the reason that it keeps getting pushed back
That's 10
is,
million.
my understanding is
10
that
million to go 1,000 more feet?
No, to go to 10,000 feet.
you're never gonna
Go
get
to
funding for the
10,000.
project.
The 10,000 foot, I think
There's a lot of extra conversation going on, so we can't really make it out.
1,000 feet. The 10,000, they just said the 10,000 foot runway was
10 million.
10 million.
10 million, but we're not talking about the 10,000 foot. As I recall, to go 1,000 feet, we don't have to move the power lines. Is that not correct, John? He's motioning yes. You can't see it. So we do not have to move it for the 1,000, but yes, you would for 10,000.
Well, that's what I was just asking. I was trying to understand what major impediments you might incur in extending the runway. I thought it was 2,000, but you're saying it would be 1,000. Just trying to understand that a little bit so I know what other issues are involved other than just money. I mean, moving power lines is a deal. And so if it's environmental, then that's a deal. That's what I was just trying to figure out is it just a matter of clearing and putting down pavement, or are there other hurdles to overcome to go another 1,000 feet? And that's got to include, of course, your approach zone and all that good stuff. Too, right? I mean,
And I think it's eight,
What?
we could go 8,900, I have to do something with power lines.
I don't know the
it
details.
sounds to me like the first thing is to figure out what we're talking about doing. Yeah.
I think, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what Wayne said is where we're at. Our number one priority, I think, should be to extend as far as her to 6,000 feet.
7.
From 6,000 to 7,000 feet. And that should be anybody that picks it up, whether it be the feds or the state. When they look at what we need the most, that's what they see.
So is the extra 1,000 feet, and everything I've ever flown has been light planes. I'm not having flown with Gulfstream. Sat in Goodman's Gulfstream
I've
once.
blown with either.
But my question is 7,000 going to be a significant difference in terms of the aircraft that can land here?
And landing, it'll be a lot, really. They can do it. It's a good runway, but man, 1,000 feet more.
Even on your Lear 65s and so forth, it's huge for them. It just doesn't wear out the equipment as much because they don't have to hard brake.
And that would probably put us into Boeing territory instead of Gulfstream and Lears.
What would 7,000?
Seven, or certainly eight,
Talking about 7 right
Yeah,
now.
I think we need to, from my perspective, if you guys want to make it a priority, we need to be certain about what the distance, how much runway you're looking at. Whether it's 7 or 8,900 or whatever it is, there's a big difference between 7 and 8,900.
I think it was originally in the airport master plan that we did.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's in our plans. It's in there now.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is, do we move it out? Is that what you're talking about? Move it further? In other words, tell them, we don't need it right now. We're glad to do it. Or do we try to move it up?
Yeah, and I hear you, but Judd's paper says 10,000 feet, John says 8,900, and you're saying 7,000. I'm just trying to figure out what we're talking about.
And I think that's a fair question.
That's a good question.
We can leave it as it is, and then if we wanted to in future years change that, we could.
That's
So,
not what
if
Don's
that's all
asking.
we're
He's saying,
talking
what
about.
is it?
What I'm saying, what is it? What are we talking about? Are we talking about 7, 8,900, or 10,000?
I think it's fair.
Well, this is 7,000, because I mean, that's what it says. But I don't know which, that's the question.
We've talked about them all,
Your grant
you know,
application
and
on
when
the
we
That's in our
were
plan.
proposing some
Excuse me?
ready-built
The scope
projects, we went
the
for
grant
10
application?
because we were.
Yeah, so the scope that's in JSIP
Millions.
is 7,000.
You know, we might could get. So I know we went to the 10 and that did take the power lines underground, but we've talked about many options over the years. So maybe we need to zero it
But
down.
isn't, Mr. Chairman, isn't that in our plan currently?
Yes,
Right there?
yes.
Yes,
That's in our plan.
yes.
We don't have to come up with
So
redoing it. We have 7,000 feet in our plan. It's just a matter of when we would like to have it. You can ask for all this, doesn't mean you'll get it.
And so that's why I was asking the questions.
I agree.
Is it 7 that gives you the big incremental advantage, or do you have to go out beyond 7 to get the big incremental advantage? And I'm not trying to weigh into whether you move it up. I understand the value to moving it up. Certainly I do. And I understand what you're saying. If you make it more attractive for the big guys to fly in, then they're more likely to fly in. And that may be something big in the future in terms of our trying to expand from the county and city perspective. But I just think that when you try to move it, if you're going to put it as a priority, it would seem to me that when you try to sell it or when you start justifying it, you know, there's going to have to be an element of what incremental advantage you get by the distance that you're trying to add. And so that's all I'm saying is, I think it's really important to hone in on what that distance needs to be in order for you to get your biggest bang for the buck. Once you start this project, the difference between 1,000 and 500 feet is not going to be monumental. I mean, 1,000 and 1,500 feet. 8,900 may be, 10,000 would obviously be. You know, if we go to 7 and then they say we're always behind the power
I agree,
curve.
I keep saying, yeah, I
So,
understand.
all I was asking is, have you guys looked at it hard to find out where your break point would be, where your big bang for the buck is, or?
We haven't brought it up in 2 years.
I thought we did when we did the master plan, but Don, to your point, it probably needs to be revisited.
I think so.
And answer
Can I make a comment,
all these questions.
Yes. Go ahead. Well,
Chairman?
I'm not chairman, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. If y'all have already covered this, I'm sorry, but it's hard to hear on our end. Many years ago, when we put this in the plan, we were looking at an extension, I believe, of 9,000 foot runway. And that's what created the impediment of the power lines. But to Don's point, isn't there some room between the 7 and the 9? You know, maybe we should be looking at what is possible, 8,000 or 7,500. We might as well put the largest impact for the little bit of difference.
And we will do that. We'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting. And between now and then, we will have some recommendations.
St. Augustine's longest is 11,000, isn't it?
8,000.
St.
I
Augustine,
forgot you.
it's only 8?
Yeah.
There's missing,
You find
you may be
some pretty
saying the
dang
same
good-
thing, talking about the need for the.
Yeah, I mentioned, the reason we haven't done this yet is because there's no documented need to extend the
That's
runway.
missing.
Otherwise, we could have gotten
Equation.
funding and we could have extended it.
And I
Sure.
think, and this is, we're
Unless you got
reliving history a
funding.
little bit, because we went through this on the master plan with documented need, but it got,
4 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm with Don. Let's see, could 8,000, do we need to move to, I mean, let's see what impediments on each to move it 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, whatever. Let's see what it takes and estimate of money and time and what we gain. So.
and keeping in mind, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe St. Augustine's 8,000 or something like that.
It is.
Is it 8?
Mhm.
Okay.
Wow.
So
Well, we would love to steal that.
I think
Jonathan
John,
had a point and he got overridden.
Yeah, I just wanted to stand up. I just wanted to say this came up at the recommendation of DOT. They wanted to move it out past that 7-year mark because they hadn't seen any progress on this project. So if it's the consensus of the board to leave it there as a priority in 2026, that's fine. We can tell DOT that. I think the conversation you're having now merits some additional follow-up when there's probably some more time to talk about what Don was getting at, 7,000 versus 8,000 versus
Okay.
9,000. Just wanted to say, this came from Kyle. DOT was saying we need to move these types of projects 7 years out if we haven't seen any progress.
Okay,
on that.
good point, Jonathan.
Which DOT?
Florida Department of Transportation. Yes, sir.
And so
Aviation.
in light of that, then with the recent jet activities that we've seen, we can probably move it up a little bit and we can discuss that some more then as we go forward. And, you know, if we feel like we'd like to do that, then I think we should talk to Kyle and see if we can.
I'd like to have that discussion once we get our facts together.
Thank you. All right, did anybody else have a comment? I think, Ms. Thomas, were you?
No.
Kind of beat that one to death.
We beat that.
All right.
Now, where do we?
Wait, is
get
there
it?
anybody else you want to talk? I mean, is there anybody else you want?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, are you, he's took over your job too.
It's okay. I need a lot of
I
help.
can't help it.
I need it.
I can't help it.
All right, next.
Well, so the next line item would go away if we just agreed that we're not gonna defer that runway funding from year 26 to year 29, then the next line would be deleted as well, because that was contingent upon that happening, which was, we've had lots of discussions on the need to rehab some of the older west hangar doors and roofs, is what that is. And then the last one is simply to put into what the FDOT calls their outer year. So they're looking at their 6-year work program. So every year you have an opportunity to add projects in the outer year, which would be 2027 right now. And so this is just penciling in another hangar project. So the FDOT hopefully can allocate funding in that year, kind of generically right now. And then once it gets closer, you could further define what kind of hangar building you want that to be.
And how many?
There's really no scope to it. It's just
Yeah,
really
just-
putting money in that year so that you have it there to do something.
Just
Yes, sir.
what DOT does, they have a 5-year work program. And that's what every year, they have to justify, did they fill that 5-year work program? Did they do it? This is what people wanted and why. If you put anything out of the 5-year work, they don't have to do anything, right? It's just a thing. So anytime we can keep our requests within what would be the 5-year work program, DOT is going to be required to look at it. Does that make sense? That when they're doing their budget, they get everything in the 5-year, and some things will move out of the 5-year, could be a delay in a project, could be other things will get moved into the 5-year. But I recommend we keep for our wish list, and that's what this is. We keep as much within the 5-year work program as much in the 5-year request program as we can.
So let me just clarify, we're not talking about moving money out. We're not giving
I
money
know what
away.
you're talking about.
Okay, yeah.
Just talking about what they're going to look at, what every airport wants in the next 5 years. That's really what they're going to do. And then they have to fill it, every district does, and then they have to justify it, and blah, blah, blah. So to your point from the very beginning, let's don't take any money out of that program. Let's move it to the top. And then we'll figure out how long, but I mean, we don't have to do it today, but we should get it to them quickly. They've already done, 5-year road program has been approved, signed, and gone to the legislature this year. So whatever you're doing now is for July 1. They don't do any more money to it.
So Matt, I had a question.
State.
Sorry. I had a question too that may be not very intelligent, but so I was under the impression that all of our FDOT money came from airline ticket sales and the tax on them. And, or maybe it's not right. So where does that money come from?
Well, it comes from all the revenue comes in from the state and part from the federal most of it comes back to the state, And then they have the federal money, they have money also, but because it's a state gas tax and federal gas tax. State gas tax funds the roads, the highways, the bridges, the everything, transit, the whole works. Then the federal gas tax, they take 10%, it used to take 50%. They take about 10% that they do, and then 90, hopefully, it changes every year, comes back to the state, but that's federal, and they have strings attached of where you can use it. And so it is a big pot, and it is moved around.
Riverboat.
A lot of things to do. It's changing all the time. Actually, it's looking better right now. So they're getting money they didn't know they had. And the legislature's trying to see what it's going to be, and they balance the budget. Part of that is the DOT budget.
So when you're talking about need, going back to the runway again, when you talk about need, who does that need have to be demonstrated to?
I admittedly don't know all the details of that, but as
DOT.
far as typically,
DOT state, DOT federal. Now the DIS.
well, the FAA potentially could be involved in that project too. So that's, yes.
Of course. But what I'd say, get them on there, and then we'll have a meeting. I'll bring the guy down. I've already talked to him from Tallahassee. There's more than one, but the guy over everything in Tallahassee to do with airports will come down. I've already talked to him. He's glad to. We'll have lunch, and y'all can pick his brain, or we'll have.
So John, my question is, when you're justifying need, and I'll admit, I'm talking about it from some sort of market study. Are there people who even offer opinions about attract more large jet traffic if you had a longer runway, whether it be because of your proximity for refueling or whether it be for whatever? Are there?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, this is Sunny. We can no longer hear you. And we've lost visual.
I don't think we're on their meeting anymore.
I'm going to call their cell.
They've come back, but they're still muted.
Mr. Chair, you're muted.
What priority is the runway extension? I understand it's been pushed as a back burner for a long time, but back burner, I don't know whether that means it's just been pushed back, and and it needs to be brought back onto the stove, or it means that it ought to be number one priority. That's what I don't know. I don't know what the advisory board's position is on that.
We did it at the strategic planning session. And we voted.
Sonny, do they need me as part of a quorum?
We're asking the same, we're thinking the same thing.
That's just kind of pointless. If I'm not needed, I was gonna.
I'm not saying you, I'm just saying if the group, the airport, if it's political and the funding is gained that way, then okay. But otherwise, I think it goes back to that justified documented need, which you have to have some kind of letter of commitment from someone who's got a jet that requires
I think we
that
gotta
length
get our act
runway.
together. We have to get our act together on what we want, and then let's see what we do want and get it forward.
All right, thank you. John, let's come to your point, your agenda, sir. Number one.
Oh, okay.
Can you pick up
Oh,
the report?
you may be able to, can you bring up the business brief?
Mr. Yule, this is Sunny. I've not received your business brief.
Hello, Sonny, can you hear?
Well, let's move on.
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay.
I have
Can
not
you-
received your business
Can you,
brief.
can you upload the business? Oh, it might not come through. I sent it. I was wondering about the bandwidth. It goes through the same thing as this is going through.
Okay, I'm John, can you stop, sir?
I can't.
Yeah, please.
I can't even hold it up like that. This is flight operations from October to February, slightly better than last year. This is gallons of 100 low lead sold.
John, why don't you just talk to the thing?
All right. All right, a little bit of significantly ahead on 100 low lead. For 19, 20, 21, 2,300 gallons ahead on Jet A. Fuel profit last year, same time was 30,000. Right now we're standing at 41,000 profit on fuel sales for the same time frame. Rent revenue is up from 28 to 36,000. Number of things playing in here. The old terminal building has been rented the entire fiscal year this year. The office building on the east end of the terminal is now rented full time, and the rent increase kicked in January. That helped rent revenue come up. And our total revenue, we're looking better than last year. Last year we were basically even. Right now we're 14,899 to the good on revenue versus expenses.
Excluding debt service.
Excluding, yeah, that does not include debt service.
Let me see that. No, I just want to look at it.
And a capital improvement program, last year we received, put in $1,371,000. The city had a $25,000 match last year. This year we're anticipating $1,025,000, and fortunately the city's $23,000 match for our taxiway Alpha project went away because of COVID. FAA is funding that project at 100%. So the city has no match this year.
Good news.
That is good news. All right. The balance on our debt service, the loan payments is $434,000. That is due to be paid off the previous debt of $163,000. That was, I guess, a bump from the general fund on years past. Did you find the year by?
2013, there was a cash advance.
Okay, 2013, there was an advance. Pending airport improvement projects this year, the Taxiway Alpha project. We've had the pre-construction meeting a couple of weeks ago. T-hangar is signed. We're gonna install LED lighting in the we're in the process, we're waiting for trim on the first row of T hangers as you drive out to the west. That's kind of the first eyesore you see is that white trim
Gotcha.
on the T hangers. So
Good.
that'll look better. And if we can work through the big doors on the big hangers, that'll make this place look a lot better as you head west. And then we'll move our way down to the next row of T hangers, next row of T hangers, and then we'll get to working on the blue later.
So if I'm coming in from the west, the ones you're talking about painting is going to be those on the first or going to the west?
Yeah, going to the west will be the first.
Okay.
Okay. Some miscellaneous notes here. All hangars and all real estate is rented. We have a new administrative operations assistant, Mr. Benny Manna. Our fiber optic cable was cut. Shell Aviation fuel is no longer in business. I don't know if you noticed our fuel truck. Our fuel truck now says Titan. We are now a Titan branded FBO instead of Shell. Shell is completely out of the aviation fuel business. That's the bad news. The good news is there will be absolutely no change in price or services. Titan has taken over, lockstep with what we need. And what we need is a repair to our fuel truck. If you notice it's smoking, I think there's a number 4 fuel injector that's leaking and may need profit. And we have a celebrity in our midst. I don't know if the camera is up. This is a gentleman by the name of Art Billingsley. He houses his aircraft in the first hangar down here, and he has a block they put out to bring it down in the parking lot here and get the building in the cover. We're on the cover of Cessna Flyer magazine.
He lives here also.
He lives in Fleming Island.
Teaches aircraft here.
On him and how he got into aviation. Just an ambassador.
Yes, sir.
Question for John?
Mhm.
John, is our rent current?
Yes.
Okay, so nobody's past due.
Skydive Palaca owes us for, what is this, April, March? Owes us for March.
So we do have a past due.
Yeah, we have,
All of your T hangers are current.
yes.
Good.
That's great.
Thank you, Wayne. That's a good point. All right, John.
Man, the email.
Could we have sometime in written out rather than doing, we're taking in 30,000 a month, a little over 30,000. We're spending 29,500 a month in expenses. I would, so that we could better understand and be able to maybe give some ideas. Could we get a printout for if it's of what those expenses are? It just seems crazy to me that we got all these hangers and all this stuff and minimal debt, and we don't make the 14,000 a year, and that's because we didn't pay as much in expenses to the personnel. I just like to look at it. It never have figured out why we can't make.
So we're trying, and hopefully that is happening now, but we're trying to make sure that all of John's accountings are fed into the system that everything else is fed into at the city. And part of the staffing that we've done and our criteria out here of the staff people have been someone who can input those so they go directly into the same system that the rest of the city uses rather than going on to a
Gotcha.
spreadsheet which then has to be converted, which would make it easier for Lauren to pull reports for you. And so the answer to that question is, yeah, I mean, it's public record and we can get you something in that regard.
I just think it would be helpful to us when we're looking at things that we want to move forward. we can kind of
So we'll put
analyze.
that on the agenda too. For
Rather
next
than give
meeting.
me a sheet that's, I just,
I'll be able to provide a financial
and you can
report.
even put it in our meeting and we don't have to do it. We can take a minute and read it.
Yeah, we'll do that.
I'll have it to you before the next advisory.
That's fine. Not just
Let's do
me,
it.
I just think.
All of us, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we got 2 minutes and we
Oh,
have a very
Jesus.
important topic. Mr. McLean, I'm just gonna let you speak. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
And are we going to go past the airport
Yeah,
appearance?
we're going to number D.
Number D.
And
Okay.
that's the last item on the agenda.
So, airport courtesy car, because I know that's been an issue with pilots. So I took it upon myself just to kind of call around, and then I went and called a friend of mine who's heads up the port in Tampa to get some input from him about airports that are government-owned FBOs and then ones that are privately held. And this may not be popular here, but I understand why the government should not be loaning a courtesy car out to pilots because of the liability that a government entity had. Having said that, what I found out and what I remember is when that is the case, there have been deals cut, and I mean that in a positive way, not a negative way, with local leasing companies or car companies, and I'm excluding Beck, I'm not including Beck. So there is a new rental car company in town. I don't know if you're familiar with them. So they're across the street from the Beck Automotive Old Pick and Slay building there. So I talked to him, and now he's older model cars, they're not, brand new cars. I've gone in and talked to him. He's very much open in having that discussion. I'm sure we should also have it because of a government entity with Enterprise or anybody else would have it. But I know this is, again, not popular because I want our pilots to have a car, but I do see where the government should not be providing the car. They show up in places they shouldn't, and then the city is held responsible. I'm not an attorney.
And Ms. Thomas, who is an attorney, when we understand that's been a recurring theme over and over again. So Ms. Thomas actually has done some investigation and gone straight to the horse's mouth in Tallahassee.
Oh, okay.
And I'll leave it at that as terms of her conversations regarding our liability coverage.
And maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong.
Oh, okay.
No, you're not wrong. And also, Mr. Griffin and I have been trying to, my son, the millennial, gave me this idea about a zip car, where they have these cars that are here and online or on the phone and everything, and they would pick up the car and they would bring it back, and that would be it. But it maybe would be a source of revenue for the airport to having a car of that nature here. And I was going to talk to Melissa about having maybe the college join us in having these zip cars around town.
Well, that's interesting because I've wondered if we got to rent a car place to give us a car, or if somebody in this room wants to buy a car and leave it out here, by us giving the key out, no matter who owns the car, does that put us in the liability
If it's a third
as the
party,
person that gave the key out?
I'll let the attorney answer the question.
You just zip around, if they only charge you for the time that you utilize the car.
It's called a zip car.
It's called a zip car, that's just the name.
I'm so old.
She's coming up to try to get a definite answer on the liability issue.
Right.
Ms. Thomas,
What I did was I talked to Matt Kelly, who was yes, sir.
can you also
I need to talk louder?
expound on the conversation with Marcus Thomas from Marcus Torrance from the United Auto Rental as well?
Yes, sir.
And please
There
speak a
was
little
also,
louder.
Okay. I also spoke with somebody from United Auto Rental, and they are also, Mr. McLean spoke about them, that they are available to have vehicles here. They would pick people up or, bring the car and just leave it. Then they would come back to the airport and pick the car up. We would not be a part of it. The government would not have any issues because when I spoke to Mr. Kelly, he says that as long as they were abiding by our policies concerning the usage and they had driver's license, insurance, at least a state minimum, but we could set it to a higher average, then they could be use the car. But if they did not follow our policy, then we would be held liable. But we wouldn't know if they weren't following some policy until there was a problem.
Taking
So
it to
wait a
a
minute,
corner.
you mean the third-party entity?
No, she's talking about if we had.
Oh, okay, I got
Just
you.
get in
Government,
the
I'm
car.
sorry.
Kelly
I got you.
is the attorney, senior attorney for the league.
Okay,
And
got
our
you.
liability
I
insurance.
got you.
And we've been trying to get a definite answer. She's been trying to get a definite answer. Are we covered? Are we not covered? And I've also talked to Mr. Lennon or whatever his name was yesterday. And I think that both Ms. Thomas and I got the same answer, and that was a definite probably.
Attorney
No, I'm not.
No,
Definite
that's-
probably.
Yeah, probably, but we'd have to see what the circumstances were. If they were outside of your policy, then.
But
Okay,
I very much, Mr. Chairman, I don't want my comments to be misinterpreted. We need a courtesy car here, but we just can't. My suggestion is not do it through the city, obviously, would be my recommendation.
and that should not be excluded, sir. Just because
Well,
you.
We don't do rentals, but I mean, there are some more options in our town now other than Enterprise.
Enterprise, just for the record, I think Ms. Thomas had earlier spoken with them, I guess.
They said they didn't do short terms at that type, like an hour, 2 hour, half a day or anything like that.
I love the zip car idea, and that would be very beneficial to our students. So if it's a matter of getting more locations, I would be interested in that conversation.
Okay, we are over and we don't normally do that. Thank you all very, very much, and we'll put this back on the agenda for next meeting.
Mark,
It's been a great discussion. Yes, sir.
which one we got left, the logo?
Well, we're gonna have to skip it, I guess, John.
We're not changing it right now. Is that
No,
what-
we're not gonna change it before we talk.
I'm not
So.
gonna have the Donald Duck logo.
Okay,
You put a
so,
bass instead
John
of
had a
alligator.
logo that we didn't like, and maybe he's got a new one. We're anxious to see it.
We're gonna put a Bass Pro Shop bass in it.
Yeah, they may leave, they may stop.
Madam City Attorney, what do you think about that?
Further discussions, plus we have to have
We are.
naming rights and
Exactly.
compensation and, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I know,
We get it.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's just.
I'm
me.
leaving Dana, so you,
I think I am too.
yeah.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, this is Sunny Krantz, you're muted. Mr. Chair.
More.
Well, that's up to debate, really.
I'm loving this Zoom.
So you got to figure it out.
Well, we need to.
Well, we just know that as all the things Ms. Thomas mentioned about going with an affiliate brand based upon a corporate or likeness, they're fraught with difficulties. So
For enough money, we could
No,
figure it
that-
out. but He ain't gonna give us the money.
yeah, for enough money, we might figure it out, but yeah, I think Bass Pro's in the business of making money, not giving it out, from what I can see.
Okay, well, thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Mr.
and,
Chairman.
We'll stand adjourned and we'll talk again in 30 days. Y'all have a good rest of the day and rest of the week. Thank you.
Discussion now, we're off record.